Hi everyone, this is our channel, Meet the Real Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
With all the problems and crises that we face in our lives, we need someone to offer us support and encouragement, even if it's just a simple word. At least some acknowledgement of your suffering makes you feel secure in knowing that you are not alone, which makes you feel you have the power to keep going. But what if the opposite happened? You would sink into a deeper pit of despair unless you are exceptionally strong indeed. This is what my story is about. My name is Brandon, and I am 25 years old. My family was very poor. I was the third of 6 siblings. We suffered from poverty, humiliation, and near starvation. Dad had long ago succumbed to drugs and alcohol to hold his despair at bay. We woke up every day expecting to find him dead from an overdose. I was different than most of my family. I had dreams. I was determined to rise up out of poverty and raise my standard of living. I tried various jobs to earn and save money. I liked architectural work, so I began studying knowledge in this field. I saved a little money, but not enough to change my life yet. I began to take risks to earn more money. Risk, loss, gain. This was bona fide business. For me, sometimes I lost and sometimes I gained, but I always learned a great deal either way. Unfortunately, I neglected my health in pursuit of money. Remember I mentioned something about someone to support you? Well, that person in my life was Martina, my guardian angel, my friend, my neighbor, and my love. Every time I was about to give up, her sweet advice and encouragement would salvage my soul and lift my spirit. She would tell me that I must keep going to reach my goals. I wanted to tell her that I had done all that I had done just for her. Starting my company was her idea. I knew it was a big risk, but I trusted her to guide me. Initially, my earnings were low, but I learned from my mistakes. Slowly, I was able to save some money. Step by step, Martina was with me all the way. Finally, I became a successful businessman and gained a modicum of wealth. Eventually, I grew from one company to several companies and owned 3 or 4 cars. My brothers worked for me and had their own money saved in the bank. I bought a new villa for Mom, including a number of housekeepers. I was pleased to give Mom the better life she deserved. What's that, you ask? What about Martina? Did you imagine that I could forget about my inspiration and reason for living? No. We got married and lived together happily in a new villa. Despite all the problems at work, our relationship wasn't affected. I provided her whatever she wanted: money, clothes, jewelry. I owed her that much after all. I thought I had achieved my dream at last, but I didn't know that I had only set myself up for a very precipitous fall. My downfall began when I was in a meeting and suddenly felt terribly painful contractions in my stomach. As usual, I ignored my health-related symptoms, figuring that my mental discipline would overcome any physical weakness. All my energy went into maintaining the prosperity of my companies, but the pain didn't subside. As a matter of fact, it became recurrent and each time was worse than the one before it. Martina was worried and told me to go see a doctor. I was reluctant. Work demanded so much of my time, but she insisted, so I decided to put her mind at ease and go see a doctor. She, Mom, and my siblings are the most important things in my life. I predicted that the doctor would tell me that it was nothing to worry about. He would simply tell me to take 2 aspirin, drink plenty of fluids, and get lots of rest. So I went to a doctor who was a friend of mine. We didn't talk about my fatigue at work. He laughed because he knew that I preferred to chat and leave without any examination at all. He began examining me. I watched his face and saw his features go from relaxed to concerned to worried. He started re-examining my body parameters that he had already examined, as if to double-check something that he missed the first time. His look of worry grew deeper every time he checked something. I asked him if everything was okay, but I began to suspect what the answer would be. Once he finished his examination, he released the tension that had been building in his body. He looked me in the eyes. He asked me when I had begun feeling tired all the time. I told him it had been that way for quite a while. He was delaying telling me what he had found, trying to spare me from hearing the really bad news, I could tell. I told him to let it out, to be honest with me. The doctor took a deep breath and told me that I had advanced stage colon cancer. The last stage, to be exact. He said that treatment wouldn't help at this stage. It was too late for corrective actions to arrest or reverse the condition. Then I broke out into hysterical laughter. You must be joking, Doc. What do you mean by the last stage? There isn't any such thing, right? I insisted. The doctor was holding back tears. I'm sorry. I hated to break this news to you. I knew it would come as a terrible shock at this stage of your life with so much going for you. I was stunned, unable to speak. Martina came in. She saw our expressions and became worried and asked the doctor what he had found out. I told her it was nothing, but she knew immediately that I was lying. So I told her the truth. Strangely, Martina received the news stoically. She tried to reassure me that everything would be all right, that my health was good. She said we can see more expert doctors to help solve this problem. She was so strong, so confident, despite the shock of the bad news. But her facade of confidence belied a dark secret. I started radiation and chemical therapies in the hopes of a miracle happening. These treatments kept me away from work for a considerable time. When I finally returned to work one day, one of my trusted employees pulled me aside and said that he had to discuss a critical matter with me. He hesitantly told me that Martina was cheating on me. I smiled at him and said that he must surely be mistaken. But he continued, saying that Martina had made a deal with my lawyer. They spent a lot of time together and had signed a lot of papers. He said that a lot of things had happened while I was gone. He cautioned me to be careful. My health continued to deteriorate. I couldn't imagine Martina betraying me. The very idea was absurd. She was the reason for my success. Martina seemed to avoid me and seldom ask about my health, which seemed to reinforce the warning of my trusted employee. When I got home one evening, I told her what the employee had told me. She denied everything, of course. What did I expect her to say? She said that she was just conducting routine company legalities with my lawyer. I told her that I needed her support during my chemotherapy because it was so physically and emotionally draining. Then I asked her why she was suddenly so busy when she had always been at my side before now. Her veneer dropped, and her response shocked me. And what kind of future do I have with someone whose days in the world are numbered? I was speechless, so she continued. I had to guarantee my future, she explained. I replied, but your future is with me. I love you. Love has no value now, she said. Money is everything. I had the lawyer sign ownership of all your companies over to me. I own them now, legally and officially. I looked at her as if I were seeing her for the first time. It was incredulous that Martina would do such a thing. She said, I'm sorry, but life is uncertain. You're fired. Now please go. I stared at her. I wanted to attack her, to strike her, to smash her greedy little face, but I couldn't. I was so weak from the cancer and the chemotherapy that all I could do was to stand there helpless and dumbfounded. So now I had returned to poverty with poor health to boot. I had lost my faith in people and lost confidence in myself. I was crushed, beaten, fallen. I didn't know what to do, but I was still hopeful that some miracle would happen, so I decided not to give up just quite yet. First, I had to recover. I knew a doctor who could perhaps cut out the cancerous part of the colon to extend my time on this earth a little bit longer. Unfortunately, the operation was expensive, and I was now penniless. I needed a plan B. I needed to get my money back, and I needed to regain my strength. I returned to my first small office when I was just starting out. I was armed with my experience and close relationships that I had carefully nurtured and cultivated over time. Would that suffice to start me over? So I began again, from scratch. Slowly, gradually, I rose from the ashes like a phoenix. My brothers aided me. My new company became self-sustaining. The next shock I received was from my big brother. He handed me a large sum of money that he and my other brothers had gathered. It was to pay for my surgery. He said they were all behind me, and that they expected me to pay them back with interest. Then he smiled. Family. That's who you can really depend on in times of crisis. I hugged him and cried. I had my surgery and spent some time convalescing in the hospital. In the meantime, my brothers were managing my company and investing our money wisely. After a while, I was discharged from the hospital with a clean bill of health, and I was determined to get back every penny that my dear, accursed Maria had taken from me. I was so looking forward to making her regret betraying me after all the things I gave her and did for her. Months went by, and my reputation was restored in the name of my new company, and my loyal customers left Martina's company to deal with my new company. Martina had mismanaged her companies, and they now were in trouble. I took advantage of this situation and slowly began quietly buying shares in her companies to the point where I obtained 52%, a majority ownership. Then I blithely notified Martina that I now owned her companies. She was livid, outraged. I had totally blindsided her. She had never seen this coming. She had figured that I had been long dead. Then I blithely notified Martina that I now owned her companies. She was livid, outraged. I had totally blindsided her. She had never seen this coming. She had figured that I had been long dead. But I had survived and come back stronger than ever. I took back all my property and companies, and now it was she that was left out in the cold. She had no one, and I still had my family.